Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, wherever you are. Today we have another episode of our podcast series. I have the pleasure to talk to my colleague, Bo Yu, who's our country manager in China. So here we are, Bo. Welcome. Thanks for joining.
Morning, Felipe. Hello,
It's got
everyone.
Yeah, it's always good talking to you, especially after our meeting in Beijing Motor Show this year. We were both attending the this important event in April on behalf of JATO, and we had very good, very pleasant conversations around it. It was my first time in China, and you, as an insider, you just gave me very good information and anything insights about it, because you are not only from there, you are in the in the place where this is everything is happening, but also you're working with our clients, so you know better than anyone what's going on there. So that's why we wanted to bring you to our series, just to talk about everything around the Chinese industry, how it has been evolving, what are its opportunities, its challenges, and yeah, your views as an insider. So welcome again, Bo. And for everybody listening to us, we just sent a new white paper around the Chinese car market, its main players, how they've been evolving, who's who in China, and so we are just trying to give more insights about the world's main car market and its challenges. So, Bo, let's start with the situation right now in China. We've heard a lot around the saturation, let's call it like that, of the Chinese car market because it's not growing as fast as in the past. What are your views on this? Is it true that China is not growing that fast? Why? What's the reason for that?
Well, I think it's quite normal, right? You can't always have high speed growth rate in any situation. This is a quite normal curve because if you look at the China automotive market, especially if we look at the statistics in 2023, almost 30 million units. It's already quite important volume. If we look at the car ownership or per let's say household, that's what we say. I think in China today I don't know exactly the number. I don't have the number in my mind, but the growth rate is quite significant. So over, I would say from 20 over last decades, China has quite high growth rate because at that time you've seen most of the high proportion of the new car buyers are the first car buyer. That's why you got almost 15 years um, growth with high speed. And now if you look at the tier 1, tier 2 city in China, you've got quite a significant car park. Of course, the growth rate cannot like what we even had in the past years.
Yes, you're right. So the growth might be changing. Yes, of course, as you just said, it cannot grow forever, and there is a limit, of course. But you just mentioned something interesting. You are seeing that the growth now I mean, the tier two or three cities, which are the smaller, the mid-sized or small cities of China, are now driving growth. Is that what you're saying, right?
Yeah, so today, if you wanted to have, or you expect to see the growth, you needed to really down to the tier four, tier five, tier six, even smaller cities. In the bigger city, if you look at the tier one, tier two city, the car, the new car buyer, the more go to, let's say we say the consumption upgrade phase, means the car upgrade or the additional vehicle. It's not the first car purchase.
So that's interesting because those could be the potential for the future. I mean, when you look at China, it is mostly the west part of China, next to the coast, from Beijing up to Guangzhou, or even south, even more, even to Hong Kong. Let's say is the part of the country which is developing the most, no? But inside, to the west, to the east, that's where things are not
Yeah,
moving
there's
so
still
fast.
opportunity, but
Yes.
that's why we've seen with the growth you can expect.
Okay. So yeah, good to know that. So
Now, that's interesting that when we look at the China market today, definitely yes, the growth rate slight would go how to say, the speed of the growth would slow down. But at the same time, you needed to see the structure of the market is reshaping. So
mhm,
you would see, for example, the the big SUVs take more important portion in the whole market structure,
mhm,
and all the let's say the small vehicles are losing the share. So this is an outcome of the consumption upgrade.
all right. Which is it's good. I mean, the market is, let's say, it's evolving. It's normal to see these differences among the regions, but so there are more opportunities now. In any case, there is growth happening. There's still demand. But why do you think? How do you think these policies around the electric vehicle in the tier one cities are affecting growth? Because my understanding from what you just we talked in China together is that it is getting extremely difficult for people to buy non-electric vehicles in cities like Shanghai or Beijing. So is this shift to electric vehicles having an impact on growth?
Yes, definitely. Well, I think it's always the same for all the new things that you implement, whatever in the industry or in the life. There's always this type of curve, and for the electric vehicles, like in the other part of the world, at the beginning in China, the development is driven by the government policy. In the bigger city, as we discussed, in the biggest city like Shanghai, when you needed to almost go through a sort of auction uh, system to get your license plate. Yes, the government offered the free license plate when it's an electrical vehicle. Definitely, I think. these type of policies help to promote the electric vehicles in the city, like Shanghai. But then I would say that there's something interesting today in China market is at the beginning it's governmental policy driven, but now the electric vehicle market in China started to become the demand driven rather than the policy driven, because over the last couple of years you've seen quite important number of new models, new products being offered to the market. These vehicles developed with let's say customer centric innovation definitely I would say the promoted the acceptance of the electric vehicle by consumers.
Okay. Good to know. So yes, we can conclude this part of the conversation as evolution of the Chinese inside China, which is having an international impact because we must talk about it. It's the hot topic nowadays. The increasing restrictions on Chinese EVs imports. We all know that since early July, there are new tariffs on EVs in Europe. The US definitely doesn't want them in their country, and so there is this increasing anti-Chinese sentiment. Let's say, let's call it like that, in the way that the many in the, markets are trying to stop or delay the arrival of imported cars from China. How do you guys see that in China? Is it a big topic in the industry? Is the industry or the authorities are really worried about it? What's the mood?
I think I think we should not really be surprised by what's happening. Anyway, it's not something new, because if you look at the history, right? In the automotive industry, several years ago, the Japanese brand experienced the similar situation in USA, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
even for other Chinese product, the industry, like the several years ago, the solar panel, all these type of things, we always experience these type of challenges. So
Hmm.
it's nothing
New.
surprising.
Mm.
It just when an OEM, well, for the Chinese OEM, when they are looking at their global project, they just needed to have a more comprehensive plan to live with this type of situation, instead of I would say complaining each other. The best way might be sit together and looking for a better cooperation, work together and try to have a win-win situation. This is the only way, I think, whatever for the Chinese OEM or for the industry in overseas market, uh, to get mutual benefit.
That's the challenge, to find a win-win situation, especially when you have politicians making part of this discussion. But as you just said, with or without tariffs, the Chinese cars will arrive. It was the case with the Japanese cars, and it was the case with the Korean cars. Sooner or later, they will have it. However, eh, some people say that measures like these mm, have two effects. One, opposite effects. One is that it will prevent further presence of Chinese car brands. And let's call it. Let's talk about the European case. So it will prevent some Chinese brands to come to Europe, and or even they will change their investment plans in Europe. And on the other side, there are people who say that this will accelerate their localization plans in Europe. As you know, Chery and BYD are already building factories in Europe, and some others are thinking about it. Uh, so, what's your view? Is this a negative thing for their plans to build cars locally, or a good thing?
I would not say good or bad, and I would even not say prevent. Uh, that would just let's say lots of tier two and tier three Chinese OEMs, they would just be more cautious, and they would, as I said, make or prepare themselves better rather than just okay sell the car. Anyway, the localization, it has been always on the plan, whether for brands like BYD or Chery. As we discussed in the past, it's not new that the Chinese OEM export the vehicle. It has already started 20 years ago. And they've made different attempts, right? At the beginning, they just try to sell the vehicle to where they can sell. And when you look at our data from 2021, you've seen there's something new in the Chinese OEMs exportation. The destination have been changed. You started to see, like Europe, like Australia, all these developed markets as a destination of the Chinese export. When they do this, definitely there's already a plan. They know that, okay, from we say that there are different steps of the Chinese OEMs exportation plan. At the beginning, you got this product exportation. Then you would see there's not only the vehicle export, you would see all the supply chain going global together with the OEMs as well. And as come back to your question, Europe is always a quite important market. And you also got all these strong local brands in Europe. For the Chinese OEMs who's determined to develop their business in Europe, since the beginning, they've already thought about the localization. It's just one part of the thing that you said, the fact that you added a tariff, that's just accelerate their plan of localization, but it's not something new. It has already been on the plan because they know that in order to be competitive, in order to provide the right product to an important market where you do have already a strong, well-established brand there, is a must step.
Yeah, yeah. It's nothing new. They were expecting these things, I'm sure. So it's nothing that it's not changing their plans. However, it's important to see the other side of this situation, because we, of course, as most of the industry is happening and it's evolving in North America, Europe, and China. Sometimes we forget about talking about the emerging markets, because that's
Mm.
where I say that in the emerging markets is where the real battle between China and the legacy car makers is happening. When you look, for example, in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Thailand mainly, that's where you see really the active role of the Chinese car makers happening, not only in terms of localization, because they already have plants there, but also in terms of product offensive and electrification. When you look at Thailand, for example, Thailand is finally adopting the electric vehicles because of the Chinese. Nothing, no, the legacy firms are not really doing anything there. Brazil is also slowly adopting the electric vehicles. When you look at the electric vehicles in Brazil, the ranking, they are mainly Chinese.
Chinese,
So,
yeah.
we barely talk about that, and and I'm sure for Chinese car makers, those emerging markets are the priority more than Europe, I would say, because Europe, yes, you just said it's a big market. It's where a lot of research and development is happening, but it doesn't bring volumes to Chinese. Is that the case?
Um, well, Europe is important as well. It's just let's say when we work on the strategic plan, you do have different phases. You do have definitely depending on uh, the current competition, depending on the resource you do have, and a different region will become the sort of strategic market in different phase, definitely. And Thailand, because you do have less, uh, I would say, geopolitical challenges, and it's quite close to China, and it definitely is relatively easier for the Chinese OEM to set up the operation in the region. So that's why, as you said, today you've seen in Thailand, in the Thailand EV market, 80% of the market share is owned by the Chinese brands. It's almost the Chinese EV is leading the electrification in Thailand. And yes, in the Latin America, Brazil and Mexico are definitely, I would say, the strategic market in the region for the Chinese OEMs. You've seen lots of Chinese OEM have invested in these regions. You could see different. I would say the new plant is under the construction of from different Chinese OEMs, and even as you said, in Brazil this year, especially this last year, the no, I've just seen the in the first half year of 2024, Brazil is one of the top Chinese EV export
Destination.
destination.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm. It's growing very fast there too. In At the expense of almost nothing from the legacy firms. I mean, when you're talking of Brazil, for example, it's mainly dominated by Stellantis, Fiat,
yeah,
Volkswagen,
yeah.
and General Motors, for example. None of them they have uh, a competitive, let's say, electric vehicle in their lineup. So when you look at the EV ranking, mostly everything is Chinese. They are growing very fast there. And actually, I just wanted to ask you something because you just mentioned Mexico as well. Eh, what do you think is the priority right now for the Chinese car makers in Latin America? Is it Mexico or Brazil? I ask you this because Mexico is in the middle of the discussion around politics with the U.S. It is part of this trade bloc with the U.S. and Canada, what we used to call NAFTA. It's called differently. I forgot the name. But so it means that whoever produces cars in Mexico, they can export them to Canada and the U.S.
Yes, yeah.
without tariffs. Nevertheless, both parts of the politics in the US, I mean, Democrats and Republicans, they've said that they won't allow these cars to come from Mexico. Uh, do you think that politics is making Brazil more appealing than Mexico when it's about investing for the Chinese car makers?
Well, this is a quite good question. That I think the current situation with the U.S. and the rumors, like what you said, the U.S. might forbidden all Chinese brands made in Mexico as well. So somehow that might have some impact on the Chinese OEM's decision. Because if I look at if we forget the US, right? Brazil itself, it's a market of more than 2 million
Is
units
is is
market, right?
almost half the size of Brazil? Yes.
Yeah. So that could be, let's say, a choice.
Okay. Well, that's good to know because yeah, at the end they go where they can have more advantages, and if they invest in Mexico but they cannot export their cars to the U.S., so what's the point, you know? But it's good to know how they are evolving. There is another region that we haven't mentioned in the Chinese expansion plans, which is Central Asia, or what we used yeah, the countries that used to belong to the Soviet Union and even Russia as well. How this is changing after the Ukraine invasion, and how do you see Russia becoming like the big exports market for Chinese? And not only Russia, I mean also the other Central Asian
The Central
economies.
Asia, yes.
Yeah.
So last year, there have been almost 5 million made in China vehicle export to overseas, and 30% goes to Mid Asia.
Wow,
Yeah,
it's a lot.
it's a if we compare to 2022, there is YOY growth of 560%.
Mm, wow, a big growth. Yeah. So yeah, there is appetite, especially I would say in Russia when there are restrictions. I mean, the sanctions are not allowing official imports of Western brands, right?
Yeah, so last year almost I think there have been more than 80,000 unit exported to Russia. Um, then followed, I think that the second destination in that region is Kazakhstan. And there's also quite important export to Belarus as well.
And Uzbekistan as well, no?
Uzbekistan as well. Yeah.
Mhm. Interesting. Is interesting. So they are the interesting thing of these expansion goals from Chinese OEMs is that they are basically targeting everywhere. They are not. Is there are
You
no.
see, it's a very interesting situation that you've seen the most important resistance from Europe, but in reality, the volume of Chinese brands in Europe is still quite limited,
Yeah.
except MG, right? So last year, do you have almost 800 units made in China exported to Europe? But if you look at this number, more than a half are actually the European brands and the Tesla made in China. It's even not the Chinese brands. But you've seen the significant resistance from from Europe, and you've seen all this uh let's say um China threatened message in the European media.
Yeah, and actually, when you look at the numbers, uh, you see that they are still a minor player. I mean, the made in China cars in H1 in Europe, the sales of those cars represented 4.2% of new passenger cars in Europe. So yes, it's a bigger percentage compared to H1 2023 when it was 3.4, but still we're still talking of very not significant amounts of units. Of course, when you look at the detail for electric vehicles, our data shows that their market share jumped from 13.1% in 2023 H1 to 18.2%. So 5 points it has increased. But still, we are talking of electric vehicles. We are still not having a leading role in Europe because we are still having issues in terms of incentives, in terms of prices, and so on. So when at the end of the day, they are not really changing the game yet, but still there are concerns and politics, as we mentioned earlier. Uh, One last region, Bo, I'd like to talk to discuss is India, because India is also becoming. There are also geopolitical tensions with India,
Yeah,
and India is now the third largest car market in the world, behind China and the U.S. So it must be also a priority for anyone to become global. If you want to really to have a global presence, you must be in those markets. But then you have the US having increasing restrictions, Europe as well. But India is also is let's say is basically the main driver of growth among the emerging markets. But China is struggling, let's say, to establish itself in India. We just have in India, there is only SAIC with MG, but for example, I think it was Great Wall Motors which wanted to invest in India, but at the end they stop
they
it.
give up. Yeah.
How do you see India as a potential, and how easy it is to become in the future for China?
High potential, high risk.
High
So
risk. Why?
um I think we needed to look at these things in a different way. So with India, you would also have the geopolitical challenges. I think that also India government has lots of restrictions. It would not be easy for the investment. And also, if you look at the India current market, most of the vehicles sold in India, or the smaller ones. I personally, I think that I don't see lots of suitable Chinese product uh, for
For the Indian
Indian
consumer
market.
taste. Yeah.
Yes, it's and not only in taste, but uh, the existing car might be still it's not cost efficient enough.
hmm hmm But that leads us to let's say, I would say,
But I
challenging
would say,
situation.
that last year in 2023 compared to 2022, the export to Indian market, you still got 24% growth.
hmm Yes, yes. MG is not
Yep.
selling bad in India, so it's okay. But still, I would say you cannot have, let's say, the best of the scenarios when the second largest market in the world doesn't want you, in the US. Then you have India as well, with a lot of geopolitical tensions. Then, of course, Japan, which is the fourth largest, is quite close to imports. Uh, and then Europe, it's increasing its tariffs. So that leaves
I would
India.
look at Europe in a different way. Well,
Yes, okay.
for example, France and Germany, because they do have quite strong, well-established local brands. Yes, it might be more challenging. Market like UK,
Mm,
I've seen this as a quite interesting uh, destination for the Chinese brands. And don't forget that if we look at the export, uh, all the list of the market in Europe, the first one is UK, the second one is Belgium. But you know that Belgium is always used as a port, and then it will go to other market. But UK is the single market ranked
mhm,
as the top one destination in 2023. And on the top three, you also see Spain as well.
mm,
So yes, you got all these type of resistance from Europe, but even within the Europe, you can still identify the market that's less challenging than the others.
mhm. Yes, of course, there are differences within Europe, and actually, some countries were against those tariffs because they are more exposed to their presence in China. That's the case that's the case of Volkswagen Group, BMW, and Mercedes, for example. Uh, Actually, I wanted to ask you about the upcoming, let's say, retaliation measures in China. What do you know? What's the mood? What do you think? How do you think China is going to react to these tariffs?
I think the best. I don't know what happened exactly, but the best thing is not to respond. If China responds to this, it becomes definitely a geopolitical issue.
Yes. So you think there? I mean, so you're saying that the best thing China can do is not to do anything.
The best thing to do is
Approach. Yeah.
to to demonstrate the willingness of collaboration rather than the confrontation.
Hmm. Okay.
Because if the Chinese government respond with some similar actions, you see, it's not really beneficial to everyone.
To anyone, yeah. And you, collaboration, which is I agree also is the way forward, is already happening. I mean, when you look at the car brands, the foreign car brands in China, Volkswagen, for example, is increasing its collaboration with
Yeah.
other startups such as XPeng. BMW is working more with Great Wall, and so on. So, do you think that's the way forward?
Yes, I think somehow geopolitics it would exist forever, right? So from the industry level, it's better to separate the business from the politics. So yes, this tariff, but it should not stop
Hmm.
from the industry level, right? All the players in the within the ecosystem
Yeah,
to find the right way to work together.
yeah. Uh,
Because when we say that, oh, we're all talking about the zero emission, we're all talking about the 2050 target, but at the same time, you see, if we continue to have all these confrontation, it would be very difficult to let you see the electrification shift. It would be very difficult. You add the tariffs at the end, who would pay for it?
mhm. Yeah,
The consumers, right? You raise the
yeah,
price already in today's world. You got the affordability issue to promote the EV, and
yeah.
you would even make the situation more
More
difficult.
difficult. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. These cars were already expensive. Now, the only very few choices the European consumers had when it's about in terms of prices, those cars are becoming more expensive now. So, yes, at the end of the day, the victim is the consumer. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
that's why last time when we had the conversation, I said that I do have a high expectation to see the outcome of the collaboration between different brands. And well, as you also mentioned that Volkswagen increased the investment. They want to have more collaboration with the Chinese brands. And a very interesting talking about the Volkswagen today. I just look at the number. Over last 10 years, I think over last 10 years, Volkswagen has sold almost 20 million units in
Hmm.
China. If you calculate the total volume that they sold over the last 10 years, multiple by the average price, so that the revenue that they generate
It's crazy.
from China
Yeah.
market
Mm.
equal to the the whole country GDP of Thailand in 2023.
Yes, it's crazy, crazy numbers. They're very exposed to the Chinese market, profits, revenue, and so on. So it's better for everyone if this doesn't become a trade war between China and the rest of the world. You just mentioned Volkswagen. Just to finish our conversation, this pleasant conversation, I could stay with you, talking to you the whole day. But the last thing I would like to talk to you is about this increasing change on perception around foreign car brands in China. Volkswagen has been leading the Chinese car market for many years. Is not the case anymore, and you could tell from uh, even the mood, or the interaction, or the traffic in the stands in Beijing Motor Show. The Western car makers barely had attention, barely had public, while everyone, not only Chinese press but international press, were was present in the Chinese car stands. So this increasing shift from driving foreign car brands to drive local car brands in China, is this like the biggest threat that the Western car makers have in China right now?
I think it's the situation is quite challenging because it was last month, even the brands like a Porsche experienced a significant drop in the China market that they ever had. But this is a sort of I would say one of the outcome of the electrification in China market. When you talk to people in China, and you say, okay, I would buy an electric vehicle. So there's definitely the Chinese brand, one the Chinese brand too, and the other brands. So if you wanted to buy an electric vehicle, people would laugh at you if you do not buy a Chinese brand.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like a cool thing to drive, if a Chinese electric vehicle, and old-fashioned thing if you buy a non-Chinese electric vehicle, right?
It's not only the old fashioned or in terms of the electric vehicle, definitely the Chinese brands have lots of advantages in terms of product. The 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 new models from the Chinese brands could definitely offer a much better drive experience than the legacy brands.
It's a matter of product package. Uh, when we're talking of electric vehicles, China is ahead in terms of batteries, in terms of software. So that's why, as you said, it's important to increase the collaboration, because the West now needs to know more things from China. That's the reality. And any trade war would only stop the electrification plans around the world. Bo, it was a pleasure talking to you. I hope it's not the last one. I mean, it's always good to hear insights from an insider, and I'm sure we'll have many more topics to talk about in the future. Thanks for joining us, Bo.
You're welcome. My pleasure as well.